only on ET Now.
Welcome to the special panel discussion at the 3D Experience Forum 2015 by Dassault Systems. Now, innovation is a word that we've been hearing day in and day out. It's a word that's really shaping up the growing economies of all the emerging nations today. But how does a rapidly growing economy really summon the power of innovation? What are some of those latest technologies that can drive innovation in emerging nations? And especially in India, where scale is a bit of a challenge and diversity is a bigger challenge, how does a nation like India leverage innovation and ensure that it percolates down to the last mile? To answer all of these questions and much more, I'm joined by a power-packed panel here today. Bernard, I'd like to begin with you. At Dassault, what's the philosophy of sustainable innovation? How do you define it, especially in the Indian context?
Our passion, our attention to sustainable innovation is about finding solutions which are different from what we have done in the past, that will provide higher value for a lower cost or impact, not only the cost from a consumer, a lower impact on the planet. And we listen to clients, to customers. We look at what are the challenges they have, and we find out what kind of new approach we could have to resolve the problems, reducing the impact. And I think there are also basic things. You know, one thing that probably we need to have more focus on is reducing massively the waste we create. Whether it's water consumption, on the way it could be recycled, on many other materials, basic materials, natural resources. So doing right first time, and doing things which are frugal and lean as with regards to the resources we use from the planet, I think it's part of the mission that Dassault Systèmes has engaged itself. And it echoes very well what I think our clients are trying to solve. So that's a long run. That's a very long run.
That's a number of facets that you've picked up in that. Samiran, in the Indian context, what are some of those key areas that you think have that immediate need for sustainable innovation?
India is on a very high growth phase. It has got a double whammy situation. We are in a very good situation in terms of growth, young population which wants to grow, which wants to work hard and go up in life, yet we are short of resources, and being in a democracy there is always huge push and pulls among different interests. Now, innovation has to be at the core of everything we do, right from the government side of it, to the industry end of it, to the individuals and how they live their lives. The question is that we cannot, being in a democracy, make decisions in which we can make wholesale changes, take something, move it, and make the new things come in. So we have to be innovative in our thinking that while we are within a certain framework, how can we, within that framework, make those changes move faster? Hence comes the innovation areas. From an industry perspective, again, it is very much relevant. And just to give quick examples, in India, if you can see some of the industries which have developed, like the technology industry, telecom industry, the mobile technologies, they basically, because there was much of legacy, hence they moved on. Now, as the newer industries come in, we have to be innovative in our thinking, not be hobbled by what we have and we don't have, and then being able to leapfrog into the newer requirements.
Mr. Pillai, do you think the pace of innovation really needs to be much faster than what it is today in India?
It is already faster. Not only in India, globally, the pace of innovation is very, very fast. If you look at the last 15 years or the first 15 years of this century, there is so much of technological advancements, much more than what was there in the previous 50 years. You've been talking about the sustainability part, sustainable innovation. Here, we have to look at from two angles. Sustainable for whom and in what time frame? Something which is sustainable in 10 years, perhaps is not sustainable in 30 years or in 100 years. So this 100-year down the line, when you look at it, in our endeavor today to build smart cities, we are advocating for some systems which we think today it will make the life of people, the experience of people in those cities much better. From our limited knowledge about what it will transform the entire ecosystem. But 100 years down the line, the future generation should not laugh at us. Fortunately, today we have modeling tools. We could analyze, we could model hundreds of scenarios, thousands of scenarios, which the 100 years ago at the automobile revolution or at the industrial revolution, they didn't have it. Having the existence of a twin city, a digital city, in which we could do all this experimentation, at least what we can think of makes that possible to have better models of development, better sustainable innovation.
Rahul Narayan, you are someone who's literally practicing innovation on a daily basis. You're building a spacecraft that will hopefully land us on moon. So share with us, what is the mindset that's really required to innovate, and what's been your experience with other co-entrepreneurs in India?
In an organization, in a company, when you think of innovation, it has to come from the top, and the vision has to support that kind of thinking throughout the organization. It's not one person, it's not one department, it's not one council, it's none of that. It is a cultural thing that permeates throughout the organization. Coming to small companies like ours, we're about the 10 times more complex problem to be solved. So instead of trying to do something a little faster and a little better, we said, why don't we try and land something which is 4 lakh kilometers away from here? And that was the starting point. And we knew we didn't have the resources, so we had to be innovative from day one. Innovation can be seen differently. In India, often innovation is confused with jugaad, which is actually a scotch tape solution. It's not innovation, it's a fix. So the moment you get away from finding a fix and for looking for something which is going to be ingrained in what you do, it will automatically be sustainable.
Subbu, you've worked in the IT services as well as the manufacturing space in a lot of different countries. When we talk of sustainable manufacturing, it would involve a whole lot of technological innovations, it would involve a whole lot of organizational innovations. So what are some of the best practices that you think that Indian manufacturers can pick up?
Being connected with both the automotive manufacturing industry and the technology industry, there are a lot of breakthrough innovation is happening across, which is driving the whole industry today. So looking to the Indian context, when we have the Make in India initiative, so India has already proven on its capability on the technology front. As we are building on the current strength, we really leverage on the technology, which is going to make it more productive, more efficient, and then more cost effective, and the cost and the speed is going to be a tremendous advantage on our side if you leverage technology for innovation in the product design and product engineering and product manufacturing and distribution and providing the consumer experience. And we could become, not just make the concept true, but we could even become a world leader in that if you leverage technology for engineering, manufacturing, and selling the product to the global market.
Right. Samiran, today there's a lot of talk about going digital. We have an ambitious Digital India campaign. We are talking of a connected economy. There's a whole multitude of opportunities out there. What are some of those public-private joint partnerships that can really be leveraged to go down to the last mile and make sure that we take these billion people along when we are talking of sustainable innovation?
There's already quite a bit of, I think, push in some quarters, the whole country, from a government's perspective, on using innovative technologies, or at least innovative concepts by using technologies around the government to citizen, government to government, government to business sort of connect that's happening. What probably the new Digital India is trying to do is taking it to the next level, sort of ingraining it, and then using it in all parts of governance mechanisms. There is the entire business, facilitation of business, ease of doing business is one side, the citizen side of it. So there are a lot of initiatives, but it's still early days, to be honest about it. We have to remember one thing. Innovation is an ethos. Okay, innovation is not something that you basically launch some of these schemes, automatically innovation happens. It's how do you put grease under the wheels to be able to help that process go. Okay. So these are all initiatives around that direction.
Right. It's interesting that you mentioned that innovation is an ethos, and a lot of it depends on really the culture of a workplace. For instance, out of over 3 lakh employees of IBM, 25% telecommute, which leads to an annual saving of about $700 million in real estate alone. So that's a very cultural and workplace sort of ethic. Is corporate India really ready to reimagine and re-innovate its work cultures? Mr. Pillai, would you like to take that?
I see many of them doing that. It's not only just real estate, it's saving time. A couple of people only work for me in the Smart Grid Forum, but half of them are from Gurgaon. We many times tell them not to come, just work from home. It takes 3 hours to come and go in a day. That too, productive time in the morning and in the evening it's lost. So many other private organizations are doing it, not just from the perspective of saving the real estate or other extras in the office place, but saving time.
Okay, great. Good to hear that. Bernard, from a customer perspective, the customer today it's not about customer satisfaction, it's about customer euphoria really. And experiential thinking is really changing a lot of that. So how do you think sustainable innovation can deliver on that front?
The digital move is really perceived by companies in a very different way. For some companies doing traditional business, they are scared about it. The question now with e-commerce and m-commerce is not only about selling what you have. It's about creating new product portfolio that consumer will want to buy. So that's one avenue for existing businesses. And the sustainability for them is first sustainability of their own company, because when you are managing a company, you need to provide, jobs and provide the future for the people who are with you. So that's one side. The second side of the sustainable aspect is to really find solution no one else provides. So the span of the digital effect, from where do I go with my company doing traditional business to really take advantage of this new world of digitalization, for optimizing the production, the creation, but also the way I interact with my consumer, from creating things which does not exist. Sustainable innovation, in my mind, has to provide positive answers to those different problems.
In a corporate setup, how do you ensure a culture for innovation? Because most of the corporates, especially in India, there's a structure to things. There's an organizational structure to how things happen within the company. So how do you really foster innovation in that environment?
Yeah, one is from the enterprise DNA, corporate DNA perspective. One need to recognize that an execution excellence, the governance, is going to produce the results and incremental results and the good results, whereas the innovation excellence is going to give dramatic exponential results. But corporates now they are talking about, again, there are two types of innovation. There is an incremental innovation where there is a platform, they have a capability, and they need to constantly keep innovating, aligning with the consumer and the technology. And then there is the disruptive innovation, which they have to look ahead. There is also the different practices happening today, how the corporates not only doing the innovation within, how they are working with the ecosystem. Is the innovation through collaboration, working with the partners, and more important, recently I'm seeing that corporates working with the startups, because the startups are ideal place where we could pursue this kind of disruptive innovation, the youngsters jumping in with creative minds and then get going on that. So those are all is going to address to promote and sustain the innovation, not only within the corporate, but in the economy itself.
Right. Rahul, coming to you, do you believe that those who treat sustainable innovation as a goal today will definitely have a first mover advantage for tomorrow? Because really in times to come, I don't think it's going to be a choice anymore. It's pretty much going to be the norm.
if you do not innovate, you'll be left behind, and if you're left behind, you do not have a company to run. If you are constantly innovating, that is sustainable innovation. The companies who do not constantly innovate will be left behind, because there are companies in the flat world who will do that. They will not wait to be prodded. There are very few protections left to save you from innovating or changing your product offering for your customer. So the customer is global. Any product that you make is technically global, and you'll have to keep moving at a pace by which you're measured globally, not locally, not in your local ecosystem or your regional ecosystem.
Mr. Pillai, how can India look at economically, politically, as well as socially feasible solutions while innovating for the next decade?
So there is no one solution. Millions of jobs going to disappear because you won't be driving anymore. 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line, none of us will be driving. We don't need drivers. Cars will take you from where you want to go to where you want to go. And the manufacturing getting shifted to the points of consumption, things will get manufactured. So major disruption going to happen. Millions of jobs will get affected. There are already restaurants in China and other parts where a robot is, you go in a table, you order on an iPad what you want, a robot brings the food to you, and that costs only $3,800 today, and that will come down, and the robot will work 365 days. So this disruptive innovation going to set an entirely new set of challenges, which is going to, we need to really look at the long-term impact of these technologies, how this new technologies, and again, the rescue comes from technology only.
Subbu,
in fact, I would say for the India to aspire to become an innovation hub, the time is right. Because I believe at the end of the day, it is going to be driven by the people, the talent pool, which is there in India. Today, we see that most of the people who are coming out of the college, they're aspiring not to be executives, but to be entrepreneurs. That is a very clear mind shift, what we see a decade ago. So that is going to funnel the availability of the talent and where it's going. So it's entrepreneurship is going to promote the innovation, because they will think bold, and they're willing to take risk, and they're thinking big. So which is the dramatic change what's happening. The second thing I talk about the environment is the environment is conducive for people to be more successful. Yes, because the economy is good, there are tremendous opportunities, the industry is growing, and the government is supporting. And more important, I say India is already recognized as a technology hub, a global technology hub. And I personally believe that most of the innovation is going to be either driven or accelerated by technology, which is our strong point. The third is the ecosystem. So this again, now we see that these young entrepreneurs are ably encouraged and supported by the ecosystem, right from government and institutions and including media. So all this trend shows that there is a good possibility and opportunity. Now all we need to accelerate it and take it forward.
Bernard, what are some of those technology tools that can really drive innovation, sustainable innovation in the Indian context going forward?
The future of innovation is about adapting what you offer to what is truly needed. It's not one thing fits it all. That's one aspect. The second thing, I believe, which is fundamental, is to have a more holistic build on what we consume to provide a certain value to citizens or people. The importance of creating new jobs in a world where there is more automation, more things which are done with technology, enablement, like we talk about robots, we can talk about software, automated systems and so on, smart AI system. All these are enablers as long as you know what to do. What is the best value, what you want to do? Provide a good usage value, a good experience. How do you provide good experience? Is by understanding better what people needs are. How do you define this? By being inclusive to what they do. So I think many businesses have been developed based on great ideas, and the only thing you do after is make it lower cost, more efficient, improve the margin, but do the same thing. At the end of the day, the same thing does not serve the needs. So that's really a new eye on the innovation. And I think inclusiveness with the people who at the end use the service on the product is probably the best way to direct a digitalization strategy. This is valid for government bodies, and I think many examples of that for cities, but it's also valid for companies and ecosystem.
Samiran, one question to you. Grassroots innovation has really been on the rise in India, in rural India in particular. Today, we are talking of technology enablers, we are talking of mobility, we are talking about Internet of Things. So going forward for the next decade, which according to you are those top 3 technology enablers that are going to promote sustainable innovation?
From an India perspective, I think the fact that the profusion of mobile and smartphone technologies right up to the grassroots level, that will be a big oil in the engine to do that. That's one. The second, I think the fact that nearly 50 to 54% of our population is around 25 years or less, and that is the population which has grown up with the technology. The next 10 years, as they move up in life, these guys will by default be using technology, using all the newer gadgets. So that's the second part of it. And third part of it, I think there is a pent-up aspiration amongst all the entire populace, right from the rural to the smaller towns to the larger cities, that whole upward mobility, the aspirations and the ambition, that is going to fuel a lot of these. People don't have the time to wait for doing the right things, sort of be by the norms. So these are the 3 things which will going to take the whole country and the whole innovative model ahead.
Great. So as we wrap up, I'd like quick comments from each one of you on what is that one big sustainable innovation that India really needs at this point in time, and to ensure that we take our billion people along while, innovating. Subbu, can we start with you?
The devices connecting to the internet is going to be the big change which could expect to happen. Like we would talk about, it's not far off days where cars negotiating their parking lot, they're finding and going parking themselves. A refrigerator ordering for the vegetables by themselves. Wearables, making the patient booking, taking a doctor's appointments, and the AC ordering for the maintenance by itself. All these things is going to happen on one single technology where devices getting connected to the Internet of Things.
Rahul?
I think it's a mindset change. Along with the mindset change, so India is all of Europe, right? So we have so many number of different languages, so many different states. So we keep talking about education simply because if everybody could be brought up to a certain level, whereby they can all participate in not just being productive and collaborative, but be part of the global ecosystem as a workforce. I think that's the one big thing. So if we can educate India, bring them to a global education level, whereby they can participate, I think then that's going to create a wave of people who will come online and be able to contribute and create better lives for themselves.
Mr. Pillai?
I would say entrepreneurial ecosystem. It has come out of its infancy in the country, but we need 2 things to make it mature. Number 1, an exit clause. A failed entrepreneur should be able to close down his company. Starting a business is very easy. 1-2 days you can start a business, but closing down takes years. And that which require the government intervention to have some kind of exit clause, closing down, at least a moratorium on the interest which you pay to the investors. Number 2, the mindset change. That's from the entire society. A failed entrepreneur, if he goes for financing or even anything, people look down upon him. So the entire society need to look at failed entrepreneur coming with second venture, third venture as much more reliable to bet on them.
Bernard?
Zero waste, zero defect. Just one thing.
All right. Samiran?
So I will say it is the energy amongst the young populace to move faster is where probably this will fuel the whole innovation areas. And it takes from all these areas, right from the skills to the using the devices to some of these forcing the pace at which even the government and the bureaucratic red tape also needs to change. It's all this because there is a tide which is coming up in the whole country.
Great. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for those wonderful ideas and solutions. And there is, of course, no doubt that sustainability is going to be one of the key driving factors of innovation going forward. And India is no different from the rest of the world as we sit at the cusp of, taking off on rapid economic growth. Perhaps all we need to do is ensure that the benefits are not just for a select few, but really percolate down and take our entire billion. Much for your wonderful ideas and insights. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining in.